The median emergency savings balance in America right now is between $500 and $600. Let me say that again. The middle of the pack, the person who's doing quote unquote okay, has about $500 set aside for when life punches them in the face. So if you've managed to scrape together $5,000, you're already ahead of most people in this country. But here's the problem nobody warns you about. If that $5,000 is just sitting in your checking account right now, you're not protecting it, you're actually losing it. Slowly, quietly, every single day. And the person who has $5,000 sitting in a regular bank account and the person who has $5,000 properly deployed are living in two completely different financial realities. Same exact amount of money, wildly different outcomes. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why, and you'll know the step-by-step system to make sure your money is working as hard as you did to earn it. My name is Nick, and I create easy-to-understand animated videos about personal finance. If that's something that interests you, consider subscribing. So let's talk about what I call the $5,000 deployment rule. Most people treat $5,000 as a finish line. They grind, they sacrifice, they finally see that number in their account, and they breathe a sigh of relief. Done. Safe. But $5,000 sitting in a basic checking account isn't a safety net. It's a melting ice cube. And banks understand this perfectly, but they have zero incentive to explain it to you. Why would they? Your bank takes your $5,000, lends it out to someone else at 22% interest on a credit card, and pays you back a whopping 0.07%. That's not a typo. They're making 22% on your money while giving you 0.07%. The system relies on you being too exhausted to do this math, but by the end of this video, you'll see exactly how to flip this equation in your favor. There's a specific way to split, protect, and deploy $5,000 that changes your entire financial trajectory, and I'm going to walk you through every dollar of it. But first, let's understand why this matters so much right now. According to the Federal Reserve, nearly 37% of American adults cannot cover a $400 emergency using cash or savings. $400. That's a single car repair, that's one urgent care visit, and more than a third of this country would have to borrow money, sell something, or simply not pay the bill. Here's why this is devastating. When you don't have savings and an emergency hits, you're forced into one of two traps. Trap number one is the credit card. The average credit card interest rate right now is almost 22%. The average American is carrying a balance of $6,730 on their cards. Trap number two is even worse. Payday loans. The average payday loan charges $15 for every 100 you borrow. That sounds almost reasonable until you realize that translates to a 391% annual interest rate. 391%. Let me put this differently. If your car breaks down and the repair costs $838, which is literally the national average for a car repair, and you don't have savings, here's what happens. You put that $838 on a credit card at 22%. You make minimum payments. It takes you roughly 4 years to pay it off, and by the time you're done, you've paid about $1,260 total. That's over $400 in interest alone on an $800 repair, but with $5,000 saved, you just pay it. Done. No interest, no debt spiral, no 4 years of payments. You absorb the hit and move on with your life. And it goes deeper than money. A Bankrate survey found that 47% of adults say money negatively affects their mental health. Over half of Americans experience financial stress or anxiety at least 3 days a week. A 2024 study by UCL researchers found that financial strain directly disrupts the interaction between your immune, nervous, and endocrine systems. Your body floods with cortisol, the stress hormone, and when that stays elevated for weeks or months, it increases your risk of heart disease, weakens your immune system, and impairs your ability to think clearly and make good decisions. Being broke doesn't just cost you money, it literally makes you sick. This isn't your fault. Nobody sat you down and explained this math. The system is designed to keep you reactive instead of strategic. But today, we fix that. Now let's get into the actual numbers of how to deploy your $5,000. And I need you to pay close attention here, because this is where everything changes. The first thing you need to understand is what I call the inflation bleed. Right now, your $5,000 sitting in a regular checking account earns 0.07% interest per year. On $5,000, that's $3.50 per year, not per month, per year. Meanwhile, inflation is running at roughly 2.9%. That means the cost of everything you buy is going up by about $145 worth of purchasing power on that same $5,000. So you earned $3.50, but you lost $145 in real purchasing power. Net result? You lost about $141.50 in 1 year. You didn't spend a dime, and your money still shrank. Over 5 years, that's over $700 in invisible losses. Your $5,000 quietly becomes about $4,300 in real spending power. And your bank will never tell you this because they're too busy lending your money out at 22%. But it gets worse. Most people don't even have their savings in a checking account earning 0.07. A lot of people have it in a traditional savings account earning 0.39%. That's better, but still a joke. On $5,000, that's about $19.50 per year. You're still losing over $125 a year to inflation. Here's the fix, and it takes about 15 minutes. Move your emergency fund to a high-yield savings account. Right now, online banks are offering 4 to 5% APY on high-yield savings accounts. Let's use 4.5% as our number. On $5,000, that's $225 per year. Compare that to the $3.50 you were getting in your checking account. That's a difference of $221.50 per year for doing literally nothing different except moving your money to a different account. Same FDIC insurance. Same protection. Just a different website. And with compound interest, it gets better over time. $5,000 in a high-yield savings account at 4.5% for 5 years grows to $6,231. That's $2,231 in free money. Compare that to the $17.50 your checking account would have given you over that same period. Now, you might be thinking, Nick, 4.5% is nice, but it's not going to make me rich. And you're absolutely right. A high-yield savings account is not an investment vehicle. It's a protection vehicle. Its job is to keep your emergency funds safe and at least fighting inflation instead of getting destroyed by it. The wealth building comes from the next step. Here is the deployment strategy. I don't recommend putting all $5,000 into a high-yield savings account, and I definitely don't recommend investing all $5,000. Here's why. If you invest everything and your car breaks down next month, you're either selling investments at a loss or you're back on the credit card at 22%. Both options are terrible. Instead, use what I call the 3-2 split. $3,000 goes into your high-yield savings account as your emergency fund. This is your shield, your financial armor. You do not touch this money unless a genuine emergency happens. Not a sale at the mall, not a vacation. A real emergency, car repair, medical bill, job loss. That $3,000 in a HISA at 4.5% earns you about $135 per year passively. That's not life-changing money, but it is money you didn't have before. And more importantly, it's protecting you from the credit card trap that costs the average American over $400 in interest on a single emergency. The remaining $2,000 is your seed money. This goes into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. The S&P 500 has historically returned an average of about 10% per year over the long term. Let's see what that $2,000 does. After 10 years at 10%, that $2,000 becomes $5,187. After 20 years, it grows to $13,455. After 30 years, that original $2,000 becomes $34,899. You didn't add a single extra penny. You just let compound interest do its thing for 30 years, and your $2,000 turned into almost $35,000. But here's where it gets really interesting. I'm not finished. The real power isn't in the initial $2,000. It's in what you do after you deploy your $5,000. Once you've got your 3-2 split set up, your next mission is to build the monthly habit. And the number I want you to focus on is $200 a month. Now some of you are already thinking, Nick, I can barely save it all. Where am I going to find $200 a month? Stay with me for 60 seconds, because the math here is life-changing. $200 a month invested into an S&P 500 index fund at the historical average of 10% per year. After 30 years, that becomes $452,097. Let me break that down. You personally contributed $200 times 12 months times 30 years. That's $72,000 out of your pocket. The account is worth $452,000. That means compound interest generated $380,000 for you. You put in $72,000. The market gave you $380,000 for free. Now combine that with your initial $2,000 investment that grew to almost $35,000. Your total portfolio after 30 years is approximately $487,000, and you only invested $74,000 out of pocket. Compound interest did the rest. And here's the cherry on top. If you do this inside a Roth IRA, which lets you contribute up to $7,000 per year, every single dollar of that growth is tax-free when you withdraw it in retirement. Not tax-deferred, tax-free. That $487,000, you keep all of it. Now you might be thinking, 30 years is a long time. I need money now. And I hear you. But let me put this differently. 30 years is going to pass whether you invest or not. The only question is whether future you will have $487,000, or whether future you will have nothing and still be putting car repairs on a credit card at 22%. So what does all of this actually mean for your daily life? It means the next time your check engine light comes on, you don't feel that spike of panic in your chest. You don't lie awake calculating which bill you can skip this month. You check your emergency fund, you pay the $800 repair, and you move on with your week. It means when your company announces layoffs, or your landlord raises rent by $200, you have breathing room. You have options. You're not one paycheck away from disaster anymore. It means you stop making decisions from a place of fear and start making them from a place of strategy. That's the real shift. That's what the $5,000 deployment rule actually gives you. It's not just about the money. It's about reclaiming your nervous system. It's about sleeping through the night without your brain running worst-case scenarios at 3 a.m. And here's the thing about the financial stress cycle. When you're stressed about money, your cortisol stays elevated. When your cortisol stays elevated, your decision-making gets worse. When your decisions get worse, you spend more impulsively, save less, and fall further behind. It's a downward spiral, and the $5,000 deployment rule is the circuit breaker that stops it. The average American household spends about $1,560 on rent, $519 on groceries, and roughly $400 on utilities every month. That's nearly $2,500 in non-negotiable expenses. When you're living without a safety net, every single one of those payments feels like a tightrope walk. One unexpected expense, and the whole thing collapses. But with your emergency fund in place and your investment account growing in the background, you've built a floor under your life. You can still fall, but you can't fall through. Here's exactly what to do, starting this week. Step 1. This week, open a high-yield savings account with an online bank. This takes 15 minutes. Look for an account with at least 4% APY, no monthly fees, and FDIC insurance. Move $3,000 into it. This is your emergency fund. Do not touch it unless a real emergency happens. Step 2. This month, open a Roth IRA or a regular brokerage account. If your income is under $150,000 as a single filer, you qualify for a Roth IRA. Open the account with a low-cost provider and invest your $2,000 into a broad S&P 500 index fund. The expense ratio should be under 0.1%. This takes about 20 minutes. Step 3. This quarter, set up an automatic transfer of $200 per month from your checking account into your investment account. Automate it. Make it happen on the day after your paycheck hits. You'll adjust to living on the slightly smaller amount faster than you think. If 200 feels like too much right now, start with 100. Start with 50. The exact amount matters less than the habit of doing it consistently. Step 4. This year, aim to build your emergency fund from $3,000 up to 6 months of expenses. For the average household, that's about $15,000. That sounds like a lot, and it is. But you don't need to get there tomorrow. You need to get there eventually, and every month your high-yield savings account is growing at 4.5%. Instead of losing at 0.07%, you're getting closer. Remember that $5,000 sitting in your checking account, the one earning $3.50 a year while your bank lends it out at 22%? That's not your money working for you. That's your money working for them. But now you know the deployment rule. You know the 3-2 split. You know that $200 a month can become almost $500,000. You know that a high-yield savings account pays you 64 times more interest than a checking account. And you know that every dollar properly deployed is a dollar that protects you from the credit card trap, the payday loan trap, and the financial stress spiral that keeps millions of people stuck. $5,000 isn't a finish line, it's a launch pad. And you just learned how to use it. If this video helped you see your money differently, consider subscribing. I break down personal finance concepts exactly like this every single week, and I want to make sure you never leave money on the table again.